So we are getting close to turning this pile of rusty crap into a more condensed pile of rusty crap, I guess. But hopefully one that runs and drives. So we are now down to less than 4 weeks until the race, and this thing is still in a billion pieces. But it's getting closer, a little at a time. So I need to finish getting the brake drums on, and up in the front here, getting the spindles and the brakes on so we can get some wheels on it, get it down rolling around. And then we should be able to set this thing in and try to figure out where it needs to go. The upside with this is that since I'm running the stock rear end, the stock torque tube, that's going to tell us exactly the length. So once this engine is bolted up, there's really only one place front to back that it can go. Height is going to be a different story, but at least that takes one variable out of the equation. So another issue that you'll probably run into when doing hydraulic brakes on a stock Model A rear end is the fit between the backing plate and the drum. For whatever reason, the taper, I'm guessing it's the taper on this, is smaller on a Model A. So if you put the drum on there with no shims or without doing any modifications, it'll actually run into this. I'll show you right here. All we have is the bearing on there, nothing else. You can hear it drags on the backing plate. Now what you can do, what a lot of guys will do, is go in and machine this edge, and also go in and machine this edge on the drum. That'll get rid of that interference. The other option is to use an axle shim. Now they sell these shims, they're designed to take up the wear in here, because sometimes these tapers can wear in both the hub and on the axle. And it'll allow the drum to go in too far, kind of like this does, even on a stock application. So they sell these to take up that slack, to bring the drum back out a little bit. You can use this and it'll do the same thing. You may have to use a couple, it's not a big deal. If you have to use like 17 of them, then that's probably a big deal and you ought to do something a little different. But if you can make it work with a couple of these, that's fine too. It's not a huge deal. You just want to do a test fit and make sure that there is enough room between this and the drums so that it's not rubbing. You can do a combination as well. You can go in and just, lightly grind that, lightly grind this, and use one or two of these if you have to. Whatever you can make work. Just don't go excessive either way with it. So I'm going to get this thrown together. Again, I'm just doing everything dry. There's no seals in it, no grease in the bearing. This is a real quick test fit. I want to get this thing on the wheels so we can kind of get ride height sort of kind of figured out, maybe get the engine set in. So this is just a real quick mock-up. I will go back through and do all the brakes, do the seals, grease, and all that stuff later. But for now, we should get this thing on here so I can get the wheels on it. Let's jump on up to the front here. Now we're going to start off with the 37 to 41 spindles. I don't know exactly which way we're going to go yet. I'm going to try to do the cross steer setup, which would use these spindles. If cross steer doesn't work, if I can't make it fit, then we're going to have to go with the 32 to 34 spindles to go with the side steer. But right now, I'm going to try to make this work. So I've got this set up here. It's had pretty good kingpins in it. I don't see much of any wear in them. So I think we can reuse these. I'm just going to put new bushings in those if we can get them to fit. So I'm going to try to clean up the hole here first in the axle. Get any crap out of there if there is any. If there is anything in there, get some light emery cloth. You don't want a heavy sandpaper because you don't want to take material off. You're just trying to clean it. If there's any surface rust. Sometimes you get some rust down in there. So use some light emery cloth, give it a cleaning. Again, you don't want to take material off. You're just trying to clean it up a little bit. Some good practice for you anyway. Alright. You two see if they're nice and clean. And they are not. There now. That'll work. Just a little dab of oil in there. Help her slide in and out a little bit. Obviously you want to grease this on the last time, but this is just a quick throw together, so I'm not going to worry about that. Just going to throw an old bearing in here for now. I don't have any new ones right handy, and it doesn't much matter for a mock-up. So with these spindles, it actually goes between the axle and the bottom arm. The earlier ones go up here. So stuff it down in there. There. Oh, the bushings are actually pretty tight. Wow. That might actually be okay the way it is. Nice. Well, let me see if I can scrounge up one more of those bearings and we'll throw the other side on. So my plan didn't quite go as well as I was hoping. I got the drum mocked up on here and ended up using like 5 shims to make it so it wasn't rubbing on the backing plate, so that's not going to work. Plus it brought it out so far that once the nut and washer were on here, I couldn't even get a cotter pin in it. I think we're going to end up doing a combination of machining a little bit off the inside lip of this and using 1 or 2 shims hopefully, and hopefully that'll get us where we need to be. So I had planned to machine all the drums at some point anyway. I wasn't going to do it yet. But since I need to cut this lip off of here anyway, I might as well just machine them now. I don't have a regular lathe, I've got the brake lathe. I'm pretty sure I can just do the same thing with that, cut that lip with that, and then we can machine the braking surface and knock out everything all at once. So let me get that set up. We're going to cut the front ones first just because I already have the shaft on it that works on the front. These back ones actually require a different shaft because of the small diameter, so I'm going to wait and set that up afterwards. So before we go machining these, I need to measure them, make sure there's actually enough material here to machine. So if you don't have one of these, this is a brake drum micrometer. You can get these on eBay, anywhere from like 20 bucks to $100. They're all over there and all over the place. If you're patient, you can get a decent deal on one. So it's pretty easy. All you do is set the rough diameter, stick it in here, and this will tell you how good or bad it is. This one's marked standard, so whether that's true or not, who knows, but we'll see. Just kind of move it back and forth until you get the largest reading. So it looks like it's about 10 thousandths over, so that's plenty of material. I think the throwaway spec on these is like 80 thousandths maybe. I wouldn't hesitate to run it to 100 or a little over. You just can't cut it again after that, but there's plenty of material here if it's only 10 thousandths. So let's check the other one. This one's got some pitting in it, so hopefully there's plenty of material here. So that's about 22 thousandths, so yeah, there's still plenty of material, so those are good. I'll grab the front ones, measure those up real quick. Yeah, that one's only about 10 thousandths as well, so those are really nice. Let's grab the other front one. Oh, this one looks pretty good too. What do you got here? Yeah, again, only about 10 thousandths, so there's plenty of material. A little bit of surface rust, but we'll be able to cut that off no problem. So that's good. This thing's got a real good set of drums on it. We're going to knock the seals out of it, knock the bearings out, give it a quick clean up, and we'll get them on the lathe. So the plan with these is to reuse the bearings if they look good. So you want to mark everything, keep the bearings with the same hub, keep the drum with the same backing plate and shoes, just so everything is back where it came from. So we're going to mark everything. So when you take the bearings out and have them set somewhere, make sure you're marked which side is which and keep track of that. Oh my God. Man, there's like 2 pounds of grease in this thing. You want to make sure you get those races nice and clean, because the cones that hold this on the lathe sit into those races, and if there's anything on there, it'll throw the alignment of those off and you won't get a straight cut. Alright, that should be good. Let's grab the other side. Man, that is just packed right in there. Holy crap. Unreal. It's hard, like, almost like chocolate. Wow, look at this. Well, at least we know there's no rust in here. God. Look at this. Well, unfortunately, as you can see, the race on this one is pretty trashed. So I'm going to knock these out and we'll get some new races pressed in before we get it up on the lathe. So I've got the old races driven out. I just used a punch and a hammer. You can see right here for the inside race, there's actually 2 notches in the housing that allow you to get to the back side of that really good with a punch and drive it right out. The front is a little bit different. There's not much of a lift there, but as long as you have a good flat punch, it'll catch it. You can drive right out of there, no problem. So we got the old races out. I'm going to press the new ones in with this funny little tool here, and we'll see how well it works. Got the races all in, both sets of drums. Use this little tool right here. Picked this up from 3rd Gen Auto, but I'm sure plenty of other places sell them too. Maybe pretty quick and easy job out of that. So because the center hole in the rear drums is so much smaller than the front one, the same arbor that we use on the front, we can't use on the back. So to make a smaller arbor, this one right here, it should fit to the rear one. So swap those out, and hopefully get this thing going again. Right. Good.
Like 2000s.
Good to me.
It's not gonna get much better than that.
I think it's better than the other one was. Pretty sure that one was out more than that. come back a little bit.
Come back first?
Come back a little bit. Tiny bit. Yep.
Right there?
Yeah, I can come down a little more.
Alright. Yep, I'm gonna go real slow. Just let me know when. You going?
Yeah, as long as you got room in the front, that's all.
Nope, you don't.
You don't?
You don't. You're gonna have to cut that cross member up.
Yeah, I'm sure I am. I just want to figure out where
You're gonna. Let me try to go back a tiny bit more. You ready?
Hang on, this isn't quite angling just yet. Push in a little.
Yeah. How's that?
Keep going. Keep going. It's all the way in.
All the way in? Alright, you might have a little bit more clearance now. You can break that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That's about as well as you're gonna get it without. You touching in there? Yeah, you're right in there, right?
Yeah, that's all.
Way back, aren't you? I think super low.
So you're gonna be back, what, 6.5 inches I think is the most. This.
Yeah, you saying that. You can measure if you want to get tape. Yeah. Roughly there. Pull it there, and then that's right there.
We get acres of room, and this can go way back to here, essentially. So it's not gonna work. You can get anywhere in there, so that's not.
Well, you got your factory steering box location right there, so.
Yeah,
That's just a big box for that,
it is. I think you have to notch the frame and set it into the frame.
Mm-hmm.
Then you run into the
Issue of hitting the wishbone.
wishbone. So we didn't make a ton of progress on this today, but it was more along the lines of figuring out what's not going to work. So at least now I've got more of a narrowed path as to what we're going to put on this thing. So the motor's just hanging here. So the first thing we ran into is that the rear radius rods are already hitting the cross member. So this is as high up as that transmission can go. I'm pretty sure the motor needs to sit quite a bit higher. It's just barely higher than the frame rail right now, so there's got to be room for the biscuit mount in there. And I think usually the mount is level with the top of the frame. So I need to cut a piece out of that cross member and try to get this up a little bit higher. It's pretty evident at this point that the cross steer setup that I wanted to use is not going to work. I think you could make it work. It's more of a time issue. That's going to take quite a bit of work to try to get that to fit. Bending the pitman arm, trying to get things lined up in there. So another issue with the cross steer is the wishbone. Now it's not a huge deal. I do have a different wishbone we could run. What I didn't realize, and I noticed while trying to mock this up, is that 34 and older, they run the tie rod over the wishbone. So the tube itself is actually set low on this bracket. 35 went to the opposite, where this tube is set at the top of this, because it's designed to have the tie rod underneath. That way they give you the clearance for that. So trying to mix and match the two, obviously the steering arms don't line up, and you can certainly bend them. The problem is now you're bending them below what's already a low hanging wishbone. So that puts it pretty close to the ground. It's not really a great design. So if I was going to use the cross steer, I would take this off. There is a 35/6 wishbone over there. is still attached to the axle, so I need to get that off of there. We could use that. So the issue with that then comes 34 and older wishbones have this yoke which spreads these out a little bit towards the rear and gives you oil pan clearance. That one does not have that, so we may run into oil pan clearance issues. So at this point in the game, we're down to like 3.5 weeks. I think the best chance we have to get this done is I'm going to swap out those spindles. We're going to go back to 32 to 34 spindles that will match the axle, that will match the wishbone. I will have to cut the tops off the kingpins because those still have the dome on them to run the mechanical brakes, and that'll interfere with the hydraulic brakes, so we'll have to knock that off. But other than that, I think that'll work all right. That has the steering arm up here. We'll have to run a side steer setup. I've been playing with a couple ideas. This is a 40, I believe, late 30s or early 40s Willys box. Pretty similar to like a early 30s Ford, 32, 33 Ford, same design, Gemmer box. It's got this pretty cool mount on it. I don't think that's going to work either. My idea right now is actually the steering box that came out of this car. As much of a turd as this thing was, the box is actually pretty decent. So we may try to make that work. I'm not entirely sure yet, but just preliminary stuff right now. But like I said, we're narrowing the path. This is staying, that's staying. We're going to get rid of those spindles, put the 32 to 34 spindles back on it. I'm going to throw new bushings, ream those out, have that done. We'll get the backing plates fit on there. So at least that'll be squared away. And then we'll address the steering issue. The other issue with clearance is the driver's side manifold, I believe, is 42 and up. The earlier ones are kicked in kind of in here, and I think up in here too. Instead of being straight like this, they probably don't flow as well, but I'm not that concerned with that. But that gives you a little more room for your steering box and such. So I got to try to scrounge up a 37 to 41 driver's side manifold. I think that will help. The other issue is obviously going to be pedals. I've got 34 pedals, 42 pedals, I think. There's a bunch of different options laying around, but what I'm leaning towards right now is a set of 36 pedals, because I think that's going to give us almost a direct line to the clutch linkage, so that'll be really easy clutch-wise. I'm not sure about how to hook up a brake master to it yet. We still need to work on that, but I think those pedals are going to be the quickest, easiest way to get this thing going. So that is where we're at for now. Hopefully in the next one, we're going to get that motor set where it needs to be height-wise. And I'll get some temporary mounts in there, get it centered. That way we're working off a known area, not just guessing to where it may sit. So that's going to be the big thing. I'll get that cross member cut, just get things sitting where they need to be. We'll get that front end squared away. So as always, thank you guys for following along. I know it's been kind of sporadic on the updates on this. I've had a bunch of other stuff going on at the same time, trying to do auctions and swap meets, and trying to get a few bucks coming in so my ramen noodle rations don't get too low. So hopefully in the next couple days, on the next video out on getting this thing squared away, getting those brakes squared away, and maybe getting this thing close to setting the body back on and just figuring out what's going to run into what at that point. So we'll see you on the next one.